In a family with more than one child, there is always one child more beautiful and the other smarter. In my case with my twin sister, she is smart and you understand. And that was the whole reason for our conflicts for so many years. Who said that twins are the same? Now I will tell you how it went with our family. My name is Ashley, and my sister is Kate. She was born 10 minutes older than me, but I'm taller than her. My mother was very happy when she found out that she was going to have twin girls, because she herself always wanted to have a sister. She imagined that if she had a sister, she would be closer to her than any friend. They'd always protect each other, hold on to each other, and keep secrets, help each other. This is exactly what she thought would happen to Kate and I, but it turned out to be exactly the opposite. How did this happen? Everything started from childhood. My sister and I were always very different. We hated it when my mother dressed us in the same hats, dresses, and boots. We even chose the most contrasting things on purpose. But my mother thought it was cute when two girls were walking down the street in beautiful outfits and everyone was looking at them. No, and no again. And anyway, who said it was beautiful? And secondly, I could argue with my mother's taste. Kate didn't really mind what clothes my mother bought, but I loved a different style, so I always chose something else. At first, my mother argued with me, buying only what she liked, but then we grew up and were given the right to choose. Oh, that was the happiest moment of my life. So, as I said, Kate is a smart girl. She always managed to do her homework faster and better. She literally clicked on new topics, foreign languages, but I could only do this at a stretch. It was humiliating for me to ask her to help me, so my mother helped me. Kate was mean about it, but in the end, I just stupidly copied her completed assignments and that was it. But when we went shopping, Kate was the one who was lost. She had no idea what to combine with what, how to choose a handbag for an outfit or shoes, and what is generally on trend now. Then my mother pushed me to choose something for my sister. I didn't want to because she refused to help me with homework, so Kate stupidly just chose the same things I did. Ugh, she knew exactly how angry it made me. Although, I don't know, maybe it was revenge for the fact that I constantly copied from her. In general, so we lived, in an eternal struggle for the title of the most beautiful or the most smart. When we got older, we went to college, and we both got scholarships. She was a good student, and I was a cheerleader at school. We went to different universities, and then our fates diverged. We came home to visit at different times, so as not to argue. My father and mother tried to persuade us to come together, but it was useless. And then what happened? My appearance blossomed every year, and soon I was invited to join a modeling agency, where I achieved success as a model. My pictures hung on the banners of billboards all over the city. I advertised sports shoes and clothing. I was treated with respect at college, and I was proud of myself at home. After a while, I learned from my mother that Kate won some kind of intellectual competition, becoming the first female winner in the field of robotics. And every year, we both achieved more and more success. But it seemed that even at a distance, we managed to compete. I still didn't want to see her, which is sad. Then my father called me. He said that my mother was very ill and she wanted to see me. I went home on the first flight, and when I ran into the hospital, I saw Kate there. We just looked at each other, and then I hugged my mom. It turns out that she broke her leg and did not want to tell us. My sister and I cried, but then we went to the doctor to talk about the cost of the operation. It was a good thing we both had money. We paid for everything, and then we went to the cafeteria for coffee. Kate was as silent as I was, and then she asked me how I was doing. I talked about myself, she talked about herself, and every step of success was spoken with special pride, both on her side and mine. We didn't notice how our tones raised, and it already seemed like an argument, not just a conversation. Bragging? You've always been like this. Always bragging to me that you are better, more beautiful than me? My sister shouted after 10 minutes. I stood over the table and yelled back that she thought she was the smartest. We remembered all the situations when we tried to humiliate each other. Then we were kicked out onto the street, where we continued the argument, and then suddenly my father came out. Not here! Aren't you ashamed of yourselves? Arguing about nonsense, even though you were almost college graduates? How can you not understand that we have always loved and been proud of you in the same way? Yes, one of you achieved success thanks to your appearance, but the other has the best brains. You're sisters, damn it, so stay that way. He shouted at us. We fell into silence, and then we realized that we actually were ashamed. Both of us. My father escorted us inside, and we continued the conversation. I started first, honestly told her that I always envied her brains, that I also wanted to be smart, but I couldn't do it. And if it's worth putting on a little makeup to look good, then it won't work that way with my brain, I told my sister. She was silent for a moment, and then admitted that she was also jealous of me, more precisely, of my appearance. We are twins, and if one is more beautiful than the other, it is super noticeable against the background of any successful project. And no, clothes and makeup didn't help for me, she said, and we both started to cry. It was only at that moment, after all these years, that we finally realized that we weren't competing with each other all these years, but were complementing each other. And if we had stuck together, we would have been even more successful. That's when we decided to teach each other some of our own secrets. Since then, a year has passed. My mother has recovered, and Kate and I communicate every day and ask each other for advice. I am the clothing consultant, and she teaches me how to write contracts, schedules, and how to solve financial issues during filming. And why didn't we realize this before? 2 heads are better than 1. Tell me, did you guys like my story? Write your opinion in the comments below the video, and do not forget to like it, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.
My name is Daniela. Not so long ago, I had my younger sister by the name of Chloe. I've been dreaming about this for so long because I was an only child in my family. But my joy was not long. After a while, terrible things started happening in our family, and I think my little sister was involved. Parents adopted her at an orphanage. My mother couldn't get pregnant for a long time, but when she did, the baby was born dead. The mother could not believe it, and for a long time she could not recover from such a shock, which served as a discord and a cold relationship with father. They could not have any more children. Everyone pretended that everything was normal so that it would not affect me in any way, but something in me remained, something that from time to time ached in my chest. My parents put it all down to childhood trauma, and they didn't tell me much about their life. They decided that you cannot live in the past and should not drown in grief, and a decent time has passed since this tragedy. I grew up and turned 15. My parents decided to revive their happy family. They finally had another long-awaited daughter, and I have a little sister. This was the path to harmony in the family. If someone can't have children and someone has lost their parents, then why not to help each other? To not brighten up the lives of people who have lost their most valuable things? After all, my parents took a long time to come to this. They had the strength and courage to adopt Chloe. She was 12 years old. My parents wanted a younger child, I will not hide it, but she was a gifted and capable child, which immediately attracted attention to her. Well-mannered, polite, talented, with a great interest in drawing and studying, and a good attitude to all adults and teachers of the orphanage. This set her apart from the noisy and naughty children. Her first day at school was very difficult for her. I supported her in every possible way and accompanied her to school lunch and recess. School children poked at her and called her a foundling. The latter made Chloe lose her temper, and she pushed one of the boys and ran out of the school crying. Months passed, and this boy had a fracture. He was riding at a considerable speed on his bike because he was afraid to get wet on the road because of the rain, and his joy was unlimited because this bike was stolen from him, and he found it a couple of days later in the back of the house. Maybe one of the boys joked, he thought. I thought so too, until I found out that the bike was faulty. His father said something about pedals, bearings, threads. I don't know the details. But I definitely suspect who is involved in this and who went to such a cruel act. It is not to pour a bottle of water on the offender and not to stain the chair with chalk. It was a deliberate intent to harm and take revenge on the person. But who would believe it? And I chose to remain silent, sometimes even doubting my perception. Until the chain of coincidences and accidents began, when children were fighting or getting into trouble, they were seriously injured and severely damaged. Chloe was always there and surprisingly not at all involved. This was a huge noise for our school because it was famous for its reputation of excellent, good, and decent students. The puzzle was quickly put together when, at the insistence of her mother, Chloe was told to stay away from such incidents and pay more attention to her studies, setting me as an example. It all quickly turned into a wild scandal. Mother first questions Chloe's poise, but father, who came home late from work, did not believe his wife and said that this was just a teenage rebellion and she overestimated the importance to it. In the morning, my mother found my dead kitty in her bed, which was clearly smashed with a rock. Immediately, my mother rushed into our room and pulled Chloe out of her bed, and she got up and smiled ominously, as if nothing had happened. Began to comb her hair in front of the mirror and asked what they could do to her. Beat her? Give her back? Daddy won't let me do that. He loves me. At worst, I'll accuse you of periodically beating me up. I hope we understand each other. After this conversation, my mother and I buried the animal. The parents' relationship began to deteriorate because he didn't like his wife's behavior toward Chloe. He wasn't there. He didn't know the whole truth. The final push to discord was the mother's argument that the shelter has no information about the origin of this sinister Chloe. It turned out that she was transferred from another orphanage that burned down in the fire. She was silent for a long time and did not answer questions. Nothing was preserved, and the decision was made to leave her, not to throw her out on the street. I haven't lived with my father since. They moved in with my grandmother. We see each other occasionally, but I don't know what's going on in Chloe's life. And today, I found out that my grandmother died from a gas leak. She did not like Chloe, considered her a stranger and negligent. They blamed it all on my unfortunate father, who long ago got drunk after the divorce and stopped caring for his daughter and participating in her life. It looked like an obvious murder, the motive being the house. Yes, and Chloe confirmed conflicts between her father and grandmother on the grounds of property. I didn't believe it because they had a great relationship. And why would he do that if the house was registered to him and she was helping him live? Just live. Everything was already on her slender shoulders. They decided to send Chloe to our house until she came of age. I wondered why all this was happening. Why is she coming back? No, I understand why. But what can we expect? Revenge? Reprisal? Retribution? What other surprises will present us with the fate of Chloe? Who is she and what is her purpose? I reread and saw a lot of stories about mental illness and abnormalities, movies about children from orphanages, but it all looks like fiction and fiction. No one believes them, and I understand them. I write this with fear and with tears in my eyes. I'm afraid for myself and my mother, and I'm afraid to even imagine the consequences. I'll have to live with her for 3 more years. 3 whole years. If I live to see this day.